Good morning. We are live on YouTube on the Falcons Podcast. Let's bring in some other friends here. We want to bring in our Facebook groups, Atlanta Falcons fans on All Falcons, and Scott Kennedy Sports. Before we get going for this Falcons Podcast on a Monday. Welcome in, everybody. This is the Falcons Podcast. This is the one you've been waiting for. This is Black Monday. Last game of the season was yesterday. Arthur Smith has been fired. Not a real big surprise after what we've seen for the last couple of weeks. The investment that was put into the team. I think the only reason that people had even thought that this might be a question is because of the loyalty Falcons owner Arthur Blank, has shown in the past. It always seems like he waits basically a year too long to make a decision, at least a year too long to make a decision. And I think that's what had people nervous on this, because this team wildly underachieved. And coming into the season, I was an Arthur Smith proponent coming into the season, knowing what this team was up against the last two seasons, 2021 and 2022, with the old roster, the salary cap constraints that they had from the previous regime, that getting 7 wins was a really good job from a bunch of cast-offs on one-year contracts with some draft picks, some homegrown Falcons thrown in to get to 7 wins was really good. The question we had coming in was, can you now achieve take the next step and take a better team, a better group of talent, and elevate them the way you did that group of scrappers who played hard for their jobs every week? Could you do it? And the answer ended up being vehemently no, you could not. This schedule was easier. There was more investment on the offense. The defense, there was $100 and something million put into the defense. And frankly, those guys hit. The guys that you brought in on the defensive side of the ball were definitely upgrades. The offense wildly regressed, and it ended up costing Arthur Smith his job. We go live on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on this channel because we want to bring in Falcons fans from all around different areas, and we want to say hello to some of those that came in here right now. So Daniel Abels came in here nice and early. He says, morning all, today was a good day. Again, I don't want to dance on someone's grave. I feel bad for assistant coaches. I feel bad for staff members. I feel bad for personnel. But if you sign a Power 5 contract in college football, if you sign an NFL head coaching contract, let alone if your dad is a multi-billionaire, you are set for life. So forget who Arthur Smith's dad is, FedEx founder Fred Smith. Forget that. He signed what was reportedly a 6-year deal. He probably got $30 million minimum for the course of the last 3 seasons. Minimum. Arthur Smith's going to be all right. Now, the assistants don't get any kind of that, and they're going to be scrambling for jobs and stuff. So I don't mean to do a sack dance, but I don't feel overly bad for head coaches either. They are well compensated. DeMarco Baker Fitness says, good morning. Can you please explain to me why Rich McKay is still in the picture making decisions to this organization? No, I can't. There's been one constant. There's been 2 constants last decade plus: Arthur Blank, Rich McKay. The last decade is starting to rival the 1980s for a lost decade. I was 7 years old. I did 7 to 17 in the 80s. So I am a child of the 80s. That's who I grew up with. That left a big impression on my life, helped shape me to who I am today. The Atlanta Falcons had 1 winning season in the 80s. That was 1980. 81 through 89, actually 81 through 90. I think they had 10 straight losing seasons. How many is this now? Was it 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 6 straight losing seasons? Yeah. No, I can't. I can't explain it. And appreciate the love this morning, DeMarco. John Harrell, one of the big benefactors of the show, of the Falcons podcast, says, good morning, Scott and Falcons family. Scott, who would you pick to be our next head coach? Spoiler alert, I'd come out of here and try and go. Now, you don't get to pick. You have to try and woo. This is more like free agency than the draft. But I'd go after Ben Johnson, Detroit Lions offensive coordinator would be my first choice. I don't think Jim Harbaugh will believe. If he does, I might go that direction. He's had success pretty much everywhere he's gone. He was successful in San Francisco. Just look at the overall record. He had success there. He turned a dead Stanford program into a power. Michigan's always been pretty good, but Michigan was in their lowest point and they'd been in a long time. They're playing for a playoff championship tonight. That would probably be I would go Ben Johnson first, and we'll get into some of the stuff here. Listen, before we get started really into this, I'm going to say toot my horn, but let's just say I want to promo the show. If this is your first time watching, and there probably will be a lot of you who are watching this for the first time, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Nick Kendall is who I usually is my co-host for these shows. He had his baby his wife had their baby, but they had their first baby last Thursday. So we haven't seen Nick's. We haven't been together for this since Nick has had his baby. So last healthy baby boy. So Nick is out for this week. Nick will be back next week to talk about these things. So congratulations to Nick. But I want to just kind of promo the show a little bit with a clip from last month. Now, Jeremy Fowler came out and said, unless there's a total collapse, Arthur Smith's job is safe. I took issue with that right away. This was before the Carolina Panthers game. I took issue with that right away because, let me just play this for you real quick. Job's safe week to week. Michael Grimmage says, how is Arthur Smith's job safe?
And then he follows it up and says a report came out the other day that it was.
Yeah, well, so what? I read that too. I don't care. Your job's safe week to week. The old vote of confidence, that used to be a bad thing, the dreaded vote of confidence. Arthur job's safe unless, of course, there's always that unless. They go up to Charlotte and lose. Let's talk about how safe his job is. They tank the rest of this and finish 6-11, would it be?
I think so.
Let's talk about how safe his job is. 8-9 and eking into the playoffs, I think you're okay, but we're going to have tough conversations about what are you going to do for offense next year.
Yeah.
Quarterback, offensive coordinator, all that stuff comes on the table. 9-8, you're okay. 10-7, close this thing out with I can't do the math on this. 4 straight wins, which is possible with this schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're fine there. So again, it's safe unless, no kidding. Duh, it's safe unless you're not safe. If you come off of back-to-back 7 and 10 win seasons, you've got 3 top 10 draft picks on your offensive side of the ball. You've got 100-something million poured into the defense, and you have the easiest schedule you've ever had, and you are floundering. You're not safe. So had those questions come in, how is Arthur his job safe? It's not. It wasn't. I took issue with that. I think Jeremy Fowler does a great job, a really great job. I think he's really good. But Jeremy Fowler's covering 32 teams. And yesterday he tweeted out, and almost kind of to hedge his report that he was safe. Well, he's never had the quarterback. Well, whose fault is that? Whose fault is it that he didn't have the quarterback? And that's one of the advantages of being local, covering a smaller sample size of teams. We know them better. We know that Arthur Smith's hands were in the cookie jar when it comes to the quarterback position. We know he didn't play Desmond Ridder in 2022 to not get a real good evaluation going into 2023 to see if you needed to try and be the Carolina Panthers and move up. That number 1 spot was obviously up for grabs. Now, they swung big and they went Bryce Young. That looks like a miss right now, but who else might you have been able to get at number 1? Would Anthony Richardson have fit this offense? Would CJ Stroud have fit this offense? That was up for grabs. You didn't play Desmond Ridder in 2022, except the last 4 games in garbage time. Then you didn't play him again in the preseason when this man desperately needed reps. That is on Arthur Smith. That is his own fault. Ironically, one of the very first decisions of this regime was to not get a quarterback in 2021 and instead draft the highest tight end in the history of the NFL draft when nobody else drafts tight ends in the top 5. It's never been done before when you've got a 36-year-old quarterback on a awful contract, a leaky offensive line, and a non-existent defense. That decision may have, among other things, but that's a big one right there, cost Arthur Smith his job eventually. You will never, ever, ever convince me that for Arthur Smith, drafting Kyle Pitts was the right thing to do in passing on a quarterback for Arthur Smith. Now, you say, well, Justin Fields isn't any good either. I'll disagree with you, but I'll listen to this argument at least. Well, he's a bust. He's okay. I disagree, but I'll listen to this argument. I will entertain this argument. For the last 3 years, Justin Fields would have been better for the Atlanta Falcons than Kyle Pitts has been. Certainly would have been better for Arthur Smith's job for the last 3 years. Now we can talk about the next 10 years. That's still up for grabs because I'm not 100% sold on Justin Fields as being a franchise quarterback for the next decade. Kyle Pitts is young. He still has a long way to go. So for Terry Fontenot, this may have been the right pick. But for Arthur Smith, this was absolutely the wrong decision right out of the gate. And it's one of those that cost him. Let's say hello to some more folks that have come in here. Ryan Adonis, he says, laughing at Arthur Blank firing Arthur Smith right as midnight. Yeah, he didn't even wait till he didn't wait long once it got to Black Monday. It was still dark outside. Ryan, I agree with you on this one. I won't bring up this clip. He says, looking back, he should have been fired after the Cardinals game. That game will always sit bad with me. It wasn't just that game, though. I mean, across the whole season. And what I mean by that, because I agree with you, that game was November 12th. That game was November 12th. On November 13th, our Monday morning show was, these are the best young offensive-minded head coaching options. Not that the Falcons are going to be moving on from Arthur Smith, but that was when we started doing who could be the next head coach was on that day, the next day after that Cardinals game. And that's why. It wasn't just the Cardinals, though. That was the end of a 3-game losing streak. That was 3 games going into a bye when you would have had a chance to reset things, elevate Ryan Nielsen to head coach, interim head coach, and see what you've got. That was the end of a 3-game losing streak where they had just gone to Tampa and played really well despite Desmond Ritter's 3 turnovers, dominated that game, and moved to 4-3. Then they go up to Tennessee, and Will Levis, making his first career start, goes and has the best first career start in NFL history, and you lose to the Tennessee Titans. Then you come back home, and you lose at home to the Minnesota Vikings with Jaron Hall making his first career start. He doesn't last the first quarter, and in comes Josh Dobbs off the MARTA bus, who is drawing up plays in the rubber pellets at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and being told, okay, these are your 2 reads, and this is what to do, and losing to that Minnesota Vikings team. That was second loss. Then going to Arizona, who had, I'll give them credit and say 2 wins at the time, but I think it was 1. I think it was just 1 win at the time, but let's just say 2. Let's say I'm forgetting 1. With Kyler Murray making his first start since coming off of a knee injury. When we say this is the easiest schedule the Atlanta Falcons may ever have, that wasn't hyperbole. This was such a wasted opportunity. They lost all 3 of those games to Will Levis, to Josh Dobbs, to Kyler Murray. All 3 of them, and came into the break at 4-6, into the bye week at 4-6. Should have been gone right there. Absolutely should have been gone right there. Roger Cook says, I wish Arthur Smith all the best. Just glad he's gone. Arthur Smith did some good things with this team. I think he helped instill a culture of toughness, of no excuses. There's been some guys that have come in here and played really hard for him that I've enjoyed watching play. Cordell Patterson was one of his first signees who's been here for 3 years through this tenure. I love seeing Calais Campbell come in. I like seeing some of these scrappy defensive linemen that have come in and played hard for him. I think the offensive line has improved dramatically with virtually the same personnel. 3 big keys anyway, with Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, and Caleb McGarry from where it was in 2021. All those are good things. However, again, for the reason stated, this team it regressed in the 3rd year when it should have taken a step forward. An average team with this schedule, an average team, a team that goes into the first round of the playoffs and gets their asses kicked, is 12-5. An average team is 12-5 with this schedule. With this guy, and they weren't average. They were poor. They were very poor. Koki Jar comes in. He agrees the Vikings game was bad as well. There were so many bad ones. A lot of them were on the road. The two killers at home were The Washington Commanders, inexcusable. They just fired their head coach. They just cleaned house in their front office. That was an inexcusable loss. And then the Minnesota Vikings at home. Those were games you don't lose if you want to keep your job, for sure. And Roderick says, "Rue to me." Hi, Scott. Hello, man. That's kind of understood. We get that. 100 Realist says, "I'm ready to see new head coaching candidates. Atlanta would be the perfect scenario for any new head coach. Maybe they'll also help in drafting and getting a new quarterback." I'm going to have trouble keeping up with all of the chat today. If you want to make sure I don't usually come out and pander like this, I'm going to be working my way down the chat, and it goes kind of slow. If you want to be seen, super chat stars are going to get my attention, and I'll make sure those jump to the top of the line. Those light up in colors for me, literally, on my side of things. So, a couple of the things that we want to get to, and here, call to action. Here we go. Here's one of the first super chats. Let me get 100 Realists first. Couple of the guys that you'd come in, it is a very, very good situation for the team to come into. They've got plenty of money on the defensive side of the ball for a new head coach. Again, we talked Ben Johnson. Scott, who's your favorite candidate to come in? Ben Johnson would be my number one candidate to come in. Why? I think the defense, while it has some aging guys, it's got pieces there. It's in good shape. And we'll see if they are able to hold on to Ryan Nielsen. Ryan Nielsen will probably get an interview for this head coaching job. Would he be willing to stay? Maybe. But there's pieces there. Grady Jarrett should be back. David Onyemata was a beast in the first half until the Falcons said, okay, to hell with this. I'm not watching any more interceptions in the second half yesterday. Caden Ellis was a good pickup, and he's long-term. Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell, Clark Phillips, I think, is a good player. There's some decent young edge rushers. They still need another one, so the offense is good. The offense, other than the quarterback position, is in really good shape. You've got Kyle Pitts, who underachieved massively this year. You've got Drake London. What a warrior he was yesterday, by the way. I don't know how many of you noticed, if you follow me on the Twix machine, I mentioned when he went up for that pass, that back shoulder throw, and came back down, he got landed on. And if he didn't break his ribs, he bruised them, and they were bothering him for the whole game. And he played the rest of that game, taking shots, taking jet sweeps, elevating for balls. And I guarantee you he's having trouble taking deep breaths today. Drake London's a good player. You've got Tyler Algier. You've got Bijan Robinson. You've got your offensive line sewed up. Some people question the center position, but I think you saw what happened when he wasn't there. Drew Dahlman's a decent center. There's worse than him around the league for sure. You've got another high pick coming in. What do you want to do with it? So it is a very good situation for a coach to come into. And my first choice would be Ben Johnson, who has worked wonders with Sam Laporta. May he get better soon. He hurt his knee yesterday, hyperextension, probably ligament strain. I knew this from experience with a bone bruise. Worst pain I've ever felt in my life, and I have broken about 12 bones. Bone bruise on my knee off a hyperextension was worse than every broken bone I've had combined. Mine was really bad. Mine was 6 weeks, so hopefully he will be better. And it won't be that bad, and he'll heal better than me. These guys are freaks. But Ben Johnson with the dual running backs, with Jahmyr Gibbs, with David Montgomery. Is he bringing Jared Goff with him? No, but he'll have a chance to go get his own quarterback, possibly. Amon-Ra St. Brown, good. They've got weapons and a diverse way of using them. They get their weapons the ball. Wow. Crazy talk. I know. Crazy talk. So Shane Sargent says, until we figure out quarterback, everything else is irrelevant. Until you figure out your head coach, everything else is irrelevant. Would you have wanted the Falcons to go and get Justin Fields with Arthur Smith calling the plays and everything next year as a lame duck? Probably not. So this was the first step, Shane. This was step one. That said, I agree with you, because I've said that there will be at least two of the three things need to change. One of them being they go hard after a quarterback, offensive coordinator / play caller / head coach. Those were three things. I think all three of those change. Now, two of them have already changed. Now they have to go after the quarterback too. I agree. And if Desmond Ridder beats out the next guy, so be it. So be it. Good for Dez. Dez steps up and plays better under a new regime. That's great. Right now, I don't have any confidence in him. He doesn't have any confidence in himself. Every time he throws the ball downfield, you think it's going to be an interception. So If he can take that step, great. I don't have anything against Desmond Ridder, but right now he's not good enough. And that is partially on Des. That's partially on Arthur Smith. Part of that is gone. Let me hit some of these super chats that have come in. I appreciate y'all so much. Matty Go says, I told you Arthur Fluff was fired. He could coach Pee Wee League, where even the fat, slow kids get to play. Since he doesn't like using stars on the team, he'd rather target a third string tight end. Matty, I went back as far as middle of November. That's when I had him fired. That's when we started doing our shows. You weren't. This wasn't exactly a hot take, brother. Love you on here. I appreciate the super chat, but it was November 13th when I start doing who are the best head coaching candidates. That's me saying they're fired. They're fired. Mark Schrader coming in with a super. He's coming in from Texas. Thank you for the support, my friend. Hopefully some of that warmer weather will start heading our way. It's been cold here in Atlanta. Cold and windy and wet. No fun at all. I like to ride a bicycle, and I don't get out there in this kind of weather at all. So hope you were doing well. Happy New Year to you. Michael Ranquillo coming in. He says, good morning, Scott, on the Falcons podcast. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you joining us. Keith Johnson as well. Look at y'all coming in now, coming in with a super sticker. Thank you, my friend. I hope you're doing okay. Appreciate the support. Corey Carter has a couple of new names. He says, Joe Brady or Bobby Sloak are my top choices. Now, Corey Carter brings in Joe Brady, who is the interim offensive coordinator, acting offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots. Now, New England Patriots might be making a decision, and Bill Belichick, who has reportedly said he would be willing to give up some of the personnel duties if it meant helping the team. If he comes to that, that's always my concern with these guys is a coach with too much personnel. Decision-making is just a bad idea. These guys are egomaniacs, and I don't mean that even as a negative. In order to be a coach and deal with a bunch of millionaire football players and to achieve what you've been able to do, you have to be an egomaniac. But they do that to the detriment that they don't understand their limitations either. And trying to scout players and sign players and negotiate contracts and all of those things is a very, very different skill set than coaching. And their ego gets in their way that they don't really understand that. Anybody who worked in a company with engineers might be the smartest people in the room, but they think they're also so smart that they think they can do everybody else's job. Meanwhile, a business guy says, I want this smartest guy doing that job and this guy doing this job and this guy doing this job. I worked in an advertising agency. The creative department was the same way. They thought they got in their own way where they thought they could do everybody else's job. An art director took over the agency and the agency was gone in a year and a half. So long way of saying a separation of powers is a very good thing. Joe Brady was interviewed by the Atlanta Falcons, was part of the interview process 3 years ago when Arthur Smith was hired. It was too soon for him then. Could 3 years be a better time for him? I would bring him in for another interview again. Bobby Slowick would be on my short list as well. He would probably be my number 2 candidate right now. He is young. That's okay. You're the Atlanta Falcons. You need to take a risk. If you hit on that, he is the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach for CJ Stroud, and they had a spectacular year this year. I'm leaning back towards, if you can say Kevin Stefanski, I'm listening, D'Amico Ryans for coach of the year. When you start thinking, I thought the Houston Texans would be in the position that the Carolina Panthers are in right now. I thought it would be them or the Cardinals that would be picking number 1 and kicking themselves. That Houston didn't have that number 1 spot anymore. And here they are in the playoffs after just going on the road and winning a game. Good for them. Bobby Slowick is a big part of that. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. That is someone I'm very interested as well. Let me see here. I want to hit a couple of my Facebook comments because I haven't been able to do that very well. And Jordan Brown said yesterday, so yesterday's first quarter was lights out Ridder. Then it was a scared mess, and Matt Ryan called him out for it too. First quarter was swing passes and dump offs. What was it, 150 yards? And 75 of that was a swing pass to Bijan Robinson. As soon as Desmond Ridder has to look down the field, he's in trouble. And that's a scary thing. If he's throwing the ball 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, it's almost like there's a 50-50 chance that it's going to be intercepted. There's about a 5% chance that it's going to be caught. It's a really bad dynamic right now. On that play to that outplay to Bijan Robinson that Matt Ryan then said, look, watch his footwork on this. This is bad. Everybody went crazy for that. Well, those things are happening on every play. Matt Ryan does a good job of illustrating that and making it real simple. But you could see right away that ball not only was his footwork bad, which caused the ball to drift inside, because he missed that target by about 3 yards on that fourth down play to Bijan Robinson. He missed it it could have been 1 yard to the outside. Instead, he missed it 2 yards to the inside. Missed it by about 3 yards on an easy swing play. Not only that, it was late. That ball was late coming out. If that ball comes out right away, Bijan may have been able to make an adjustment on it. So the processing on that, it was bad all around. So it's just the Falcons, like I said, if Desmond Ridder takes the next step and becomes the guy, great. So be it. No, I don't think anybody's rooting against Desmond Ridder. Right now, nobody wants to see him in there. But that's based on the results, not based on Desmond Ridder, the person. We don't really care in Atlanta. You don't care who your quarterback is as long as he's successful. So let's say the Falcons go in and invest heavily into a quarterback position. And Desmond Ridder, Russell Wilson's this guy. I think it was Matt Castle, Matt Flynn. I forget which one of the Matts. May have been Matt Flynn. The Seattle Seahawks go and spend a ton of money on free agency. And here comes this little 5'10" second-round pick who beats him out. Great. The rest is history. We don't care. But the Falcons will be heavily in the market for a quarterback this offseason. And again, after a third consecutive 7-10 season, the Atlanta Falcons have a third consecutive number 8 pick. There's rumors going around that the league that they are considering renaming the number 8 pick in the NFL draft the FedEx Arthur Smith Memorial pick. I'm joking. Want to get back to the chat here on some of the super chats. Matty Goes says Desmond Ridder comes from the worst draft class for quarterbacks in NFL history. The NFL analysts didn't like Kenny Pickens, Sam Howell, Ridder, Willis. They said they all sucked, yet we draft from this class. I didn't mind him in the third, Matty. I didn't. But again, I started this off by saying, and I've got a separate video on this, not having a quarterback is not an excuse for Arthur Smith because he's the one who helped choose the quarterbacks, helped make the decision that we didn't need a quarterback, helped make the decision that the Atlanta Falcons and Desmond Ridder didn't need to play in 2022, didn't need preseason snaps. That's on Arthur Smith. But I'm going 3 years into my tenure, and the only thing I've done for the quarterback position is spend a third-round pick in the worst draft class of memory, maybe ever. Sam Purdy, I think, will help clear that up. But so we can get rid of the ever because he'll help. But, from a going in, I was at the Senior Bowl when all those guys were down there. And one of the questions I got was, Scout, after watching these quarterbacks for 3 days, what's your gut reaction? My gut reaction was, I don't want any of these guys in the first round. Third round, I was okay. And I'm still okay with Desmond Ridder on the team as a third-round pick, as a backup. I'm okay with that. And if he elevates, fine. If he becomes that guy, great. Darius Mayfield comes in. He says, I know McDaniels calls the plays, but I wouldn't mind looking at Dolphins offensive coordinator Frank Smith. Again, I agree. And I think he's on the list, Darius. I think that's a great shout. Because, yes, he calls the plays, but if I can learn from him, I would like, and this is the same problem I have with Eric Bieniemy. In fact, it might even be a little worse with Eric Bieniemy because Eric Bieniemy wasn't even the quarterback's coach. A lot of shouts for Eric Bieniemy have been going on around the league for a couple of years. I don't completely understand it. Why? What has he accomplished? Now, got a couple rings with Kansas City. However, when you take a look at Kansas City, he wasn't calling plays as the offensive coordinator, and he wasn't the quarterback coach. So he has virtually zero input into the success of Patrick Mahomes and that offense. Okay, so you go to Washington, and this is what he needed to do. He needed to get out from under Andy Reid and go call his own plays. He did. He got that chance in Washington. That coach and whole staff just got fired. That's not all on Eric Bieniemy. I don't mean that at all. In fact, I think he got a lot out of Sam Howell. And that's worth looking at. If Nick was here, he would remind us that Eric Bieniemy has some skeletons in his closet from his days at the University of Colorado. I'm more interested in the resume right now. Let's get to there to see if I even need to take the next step. And there are other guys I would rather have who have accomplished more as offensive coordinators, as play callers, who have proven more to me than Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy would be farther down my list. But Frank Smith, you ask, coming from that tree, coming from that Shanahan tree, coming from Mike McDaniels and all of the things that they do down there, and Mike McDaniels was kind of a strange hire. He's done really well too. Would that be the way to go? Might be. He's on the list, Darius. He's absolutely on the list of guys I want to look at. We've got probably a record number of viewers in here right now. So if this is your first time here, thank you and welcome. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because we do things all year. We'll be back on Wednesday for we'll go an hour long again on the Falcons podcast. And on Fridays, we do all NFL stuff. So we'll do NFL previews. In 2 weeks, I'll be down at the Senior Bowl, and I will have video on all of the guys down there. And I start with the quarterbacks. Those are the first guys I end up cutting up. A couple of quarterbacks we're going to be really interested in looking at down there. Bo Nix. If you are an SEC fan, I went to Auburn. I watched Bo Nix. I have a bias against Bo Nix. Say it right now. I don't like what I saw. And then when I watched him at Oregon, all I saw was side to side to side to side. I didn't see very many NFL throws, so I'm very interested in seeing Bo Nix down at the Senior Bowl in a controlled environment where he has to be making NFL throws over and over and over again because he's got size. Does he have the arm? I've seen the arm strength. Can he make those throws consistently? I'm very interested. Another guy I'm interested down there is Spencer Rattler. 2 years ago, Spencer Rattler was getting huge NIL money at the University of Oklahoma, and he was also the guy voted most likely, not officially, to get his ass beat by his teammates. He got humbled. He got beat out by Caleb Williams, and he transferred to South Carolina, and the Gamecocks loved him. This guy's got a big-time arm. He will be down at the Senior Bowl. Did he learn a lesson? Did he mature? One of the things I will be watching is I want to see how he interacts with his teammates. I want to see how he is accepted. All of those things. I was at an All-Star game one time, and the week finished by the center and the quarterback that were rooming together, and the center was a kid from Tennessee, nicest country boy you've ever seen, grabbing the quarterback by the throat and sticking him up against the wall and said, "If you open your mouth again, I'm going to break your neck." Those are the kind of things you get to learn when you go to these events. I want to see Spencer Rattler and how he interacts with his teammates because he has a first-round arm. He does. And he's going to be available later on in the draft. If you don't want to trade up for Jaden Daniels, if you don't want to trade up and try and get into that sweepstakes, then you might need to get somebody on day 2, day 3, round 4, and Spencer Rattler could be somebody you could be interested in. All right, here we go. Latimer has a funny super chat. He says, "Love the show. Thanks, you Latman95. Happy New Year. Does the UPS owner's son coach football by chance?" I don't know. Maybe. I have run into several of Fred Smith's relatives through the years, though. He had a son. I don't remember his name, but he actually got invited to the Army All-American Bowl. Was a decent little quarterback. Was a grandson, actually, was there. So I know the Smith family is heavily involved in football. So I don't know on that one. Corey Carter says, Arthur Blank had to get rid of Smith because money talks, and the fans were not going to be excited to show up next season with Smith in charge. Arthur went all in on Ritter, and he paid the price. It's kind of crazy, wasn't it, Corey? If Arthur Blank were to ask me, I'd say he needs to go back to what he did when he first started at the Georgia Dome, when the Falcons were not selling out the stadium, and he took the upper deck and he lowered all the prices to like $5 in the upper deck, and they've been sold out ever since. They move into the Mercedes-Benz and they go to PSLs. I've got a video. It's an older video on here where I'm talking about Atlanta United's commercial success. And I think we had 19 home games. And my season tickets for 19 home games, I had Delta Club, I had all this stuff, were something like $900 for each ticket, and I paid like $1,800. The same tickets for the Atlanta Falcons were $15,000, and that was 5 years ago. $15,000. Atlanta's not going to stand for that. They just won't. So you sold out these PSLs to these corporations, and now you've got an empty lower bowl, and it looks ridiculous. That's a mistake. The Braves did the same thing when they moved into Turner Field. They outpriced fans. It became the most expensive ticket / night out with parking and concessions in Major League Baseball. And they took a hit. It took them a while to recover for that, Corey. And yes, there was no way that Arthur Blank could have sold Smith. I said last week, what's it mean? I was going to cut it up and do as like a reel, as a quick segment, but it was like, what would the message be if Arthur Blank did not fire Arthur Smith? It would be, the message would have been, I don't care. I don't care about you. I don't care about winning. I don't care about your thoughts. And that's not Arthur Blank. It's not. Now, Arthur Blank has done some things, and a lot of people blame him. He's not the worst owner in the world, y'all. He's just not. Is he too loyal to some of his guys? Yes. But he wasn't going to completely ignore his customer base, completely ignore what he sees on the field, and go through this again. It just wasn't going to happen. So I got the feeling last week, this game didn't really matter unless the Panthers beat the Buccaneers, the Falcons backdoor their way into the playoffs and win the NFC South, and then win another game. Okay, you make it to the divisional round, we're having a different conversation. You go in and beat the Saints, you go in, you eke your way in, and you beat who they have, the Eagles. The Buccaneers have the Eagles. You beat the Eagles and you move into the divisional round, then we're having a different conversation. Didn't happen. Instead, you were flat out embarrassed, humiliated out there. Speaking of which, we haven't even talked about how the game ended on this one. I said right away how many people were mad at the Saints that they embarrassed Arthur Smith like that. And pretty much the answer was nobody. It was okay. They, whatever it took to get Arthur Smith out of there. Now, running a play out of a victory formation and being kind of sneaky about it, that's pretty lame. That is. I think all of us will admit, listen, if you're going to go for it and try and get Jamal Williams' touchdown, then do it a different way. My question is the players really wanted to do this? Jamal Williams led the NFL touchdowns last year with the Detroit Lions. Didn't have a touchdown. They wanted to get him in. The coach, Dennis Allen, said, no, kneel the ball. If they had lined up in a power formation and gone for it, would he have called timeout? And what does it say about Dennis Allen that his coach, his players said, to hell with you, we'll do what we want? That's an interesting dynamic too. So questions we'll answer all during the off season. Greg Elrod coming in. Good to see you, Greg. He says, I appreciate all your hard work this year. The best part of the season was your commentary. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Hope I don't say that again next year. Thank you. Yeah, for your sake, for the sake of this team, I hope it's a lot better. And I think it should be a very interesting offseason too. For 2 years, Greg, I was preaching patience for this team, and it's not going to be that exciting. And the guys that you're going to be signing are going to be, who the hell is that guy? And then it changed. The offseason in 2020 for 2023 was pretty awesome. Signing guys that mattered, and they made a difference. David Onyemata, Caden Ellis, Calais Campbell. Bud Dupree had a decent year. Jesse Bates obviously could finish first-team All-Pro, already made the Pro Bowl. That's fun. Falcons have some money again, and they are going to be very, very active in the quarterback market. They've got to go get an edge. If they decide that they can't get their quarterback at 8, look for somebody like Dallas Turner. Look for a guy at edge that they can come in. Look for somebody opposite A.J. Terrell, maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry, a couple Alabama guys. Could all be factors in there. And then you've got money, and you've got an owner that's not afraid to spend it. So, again, everybody who wants to get on Arthur Blank, I'm not saying he's perfect. He's not. But you've got an owner that's willing to spend the money. The problem has been that his money has been spent recklessly through the past, mostly with Thomas Dimitroff. This last offseason, Terry Fontenot has been spectacular with salary cap management thus far. Can he keep it up? Again, the free agents for the most part have hit. The guys that they bring in as bodies on the defensive line, Mikael London, Amir Abdullah last year, those guys have been good pros. So I'm pretty happy with where the team is. Thank you, Arthur Smith, relative to where it was when he got here. But this team was a step back, and the head coach / offensive coordinator, play caller has got to go. Corey Carter coming in on YouTube. In order to have a true culture change, you need a young and energetic head coach who can stay in place and change things. No on Bieniemy and Harbaugh. A little too old for you, Corey. And I don't necessarily agree with that one. When you think of guys, I think Arthur Smith is a couple years younger than I am. He looks 10 years old. At least in my mind, he looks 10 years older than me. But I think he's actually a couple years younger than me. He's in his 40s still. I am not in my 40s still. You think of these guys, they can go mid-60s to 70. That's 20 years. Man, what is a generation? We talk about these generational talents. There's a buzzword for you. It's one of my buzzwords that gets me every time. We talk about these generational talents at different positions. What's an NFL generation? 6 years? 7 years? Man, if I could get a decade of a great coach, I would take it right now. Can I get that from a guy who's 50 years old? Yes, I can. Can I get it from a guy who's 55 years old? Yes, I can. Can I get it from Bill Belichick? No, I can't. Is this team close enough that if you thought you had Phil Jackson coming in here to coach for a season or two, would you take it? Is this team close enough? Probably not, because they don't have their quarterback situation settled. That's the big problem. Now, Bill Belichick comes in and brings Tom Brady. Too late. Tom Brady, love him, think he's amazing, but that's past also. So I think, Corey, when we start talking about guys in their 50s, I think you're still okay for talking about culture change and energy. Pete Carroll, for God's sakes. How old was Pete when he took that job in Seattle? How old is he now? Someone want to look that up for me and throw that in the chat. Pete Carroll absolutely changed the culture in Seattle, 100%. And that guy is maniacal energy. I say, I wish I had his energy. I hope I have that energy when I'm his age. Hell, I wish I had his energy now. I wish I had his energy at 70 and when I was in my 30s. So on that note, I'm going to say, a guy in his 50s. I think that's plenty. And Mike Harvey comes and he says, on Eric Bieniemy, in what universe do you hire a coach with 1 year of play calling experience? And that year they only score 18.7 points per game. And again, Mike, I'm okay with 1 year of play calling experience. And I'm willing to overlook some of the detriments of that team, but I think there's better candidates, Mike, because I'm with you on this. With Eric Bieniemy, he wasn't the quarterback coach in Kansas City. He wasn't the play caller. Okay, so it reminds me of Office Space a little bit. What exactly is it that you do here? Game plans and coordinates. Well, Mike McDaniels did that. Mike McDaniel did that did some of that in Atlanta, did some of that in San Francisco, and spun it into a head coaching job before he was even calling plays. Amazing. Is he Mike McDaniel? Maybe not, but I'd rather go in a direction of Bobby Slowick, who's only got 1 year of calling plays. Now, I think the success that they had in Houston trumps what we saw in Washington. And going into the season where your expectations that CJ Stroud was going to be this good, I don't think anybody expected CJ Stroud to be this good, or he wouldn't have gone number 2. He would have gone number 1 overall. Ben Johnson in that Detroit offense, yeah, they've got a lot of weapons. So what? They've drafted for that weapons. They've built that team a lot like the Falcons. A lot like the Falcons. Ben Johnson would be a plug and play. Get your quarterback. Do what you need to do. Go find whichever veteran wants to come in on a decent price to play for Ben Johnson and draft. Go all in. I've been asked to get Jaden Daniels. Okay, what's it going to cost? I don't know that you can do it. Honestly, I don't know that you can get into 1, 2, or 3. If the Chicago Bears decide to hold on to their pick at number 1, you are not getting, who's next? Washington, I believe, has a number 2 pick. Washington's not coming out of that pick. They need a quarterback. Number 3, New England. What do you think New England's going to do at number 3? They're not coming out of that pick. So if I don't think that you can go. I don't think unless Chicago decides to hold on to Justin Fields and spend that number 1 overall pick for a fortune, and they might trade it to Washington or New England so that nobody jumps over them, and they might just move down to 2 or 3. But if that pick is going to be up for grabs, it's going to cost a fortune, an absolute fortune to move into that spot. I don't think you're going to have a shot to move from 8 to get Jaden Daniels, to get Caleb Williams, to get Drake May. I don't think it can happen. So where do you go? You go Michael Penix? Oh, man, there's a lot of injuries there that are kind of scary. I love the way he throws the ball. We'll get to watch him tonight in the NFL, in the college football playoff game, but he's a little concerning. Do I want to go number 8 there? Do I want to go Bo Nix maybe a little later, trade down some? Possibly. So we'll see. Do I want to take a flyer on Russell Wilson? He'd be cheap. You go Russell Wilson, you need to draft a guy too, flat out. You go a bridge quarterback, you go a mid-level $10 to $20 million starting quarterback veteran. There aren't a lot of those available. It won't cost that much for Russell Wilson because the Broncos are paying a salary next year. You've got to draft a guy too. You have to. Let me see if I can hit the bottom of the chat here real quick, since I haven't really been able to do that. I want to try and get to some of y'all's comments. Brian Greenleaf, I like this. If you go Bobby Slowick and you get Michael Penix, it's funny you're talking about Michael Penix is. Would someone be desperate enough to take him in the top 10? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see tonight. I know after watching CJ Stroud, I was ready to take him 1 or 2 last year. DeKing, he comes in. He says, simply put, Kyle Pitts put up over 1,000 yards as a rookie. Why? Competent quarterback play, which is something we haven't had since Ryan left. Justin Fields may be better than Desmond Ridder, but he's not that much better. And again, it wouldn't cost you as much. You're not getting Jaden Daniels without 3 first-round picks. And I don't think that's going to be enough because those guys, like I said, those 3 teams, it's either Justin Fields are available or the first 3 quarterbacks aren't, because they're going 1, 2, 3. They're going 1, 2, 3. So Caleb Williams, Drake May, 1, 2, and then Jaden Daniels, 3. Those are the top 3 picks. And all 3, if Chicago says we need a quarterback, all 3 of those teams need a quarterback. You're not getting Washington out of the top 3. You are not getting New England out of the top 3. Just not going to happen because they are quarterback desperate. And then the team sitting at number 4, Arizona, decides, all right, we're good with Kyler Murray. Now we're going to go get our second Larry Fitzgerald. We're going to go get the second coming in Marvin Harrison Jr., which is fine. But trying to go get a quarterback is going to be awfully tough. Ryan Adonis says, get the edge rusher at number 8 if you can't get the quarterback. Yeah, if he's there, if you like him. The thing is, there should be enough good players in that area to fill a need. If you want to go corner, we've talked about that before. And the guys you wanted, Derek Stingley, Sauce Gardner, they went too soon. Terry Porter, I think was the guy I'm thinking of. Went back up to Pittsburgh, went before the Falcons were picking. But there should be a position of value, not a running back or a tight end, available at 8 that can be a best prospect available type on there. Andrew says, what about picking best defensive player in the first and then trade back up to the bottom of the first or top of the second for your quarterback? Definitely possible. The Falcons right now, we'll see what the Jacksonville Jaguars do. Calvin Ridley finished strong. Right now, that pick is a 3rd-round pick. That pick could move up to a number 2 pick. Right now, it's 79 overall. They could move that up to a 2nd-round pick, which would be probably 45, between 45, 48. I'm not sure for positive on that. If they sign him to a new contract before the draft. If not, it stays at number 79. Now I've got number 8 and I've got 3 picks in the top 50. Yeah, I could probably do something. Is it worth it? Or, could I stick around and try one of those other quarterbacks? All good questions. Make You Fumble says, bring Dan Quinn back fast and physical. They forgot to do. I wouldn't mind it with Terry Fontenot. He seems to like defensive players. Thomas Dimitrov didn't. That was a problem. That was a problem for sure. Rich, he's all about Michael Penix. Dixon says, will he be there in the second round if Washington wins the national championship? Maybe. If you look at NFL mock draft database, which brings in a bunch together, he goes at 14 to the Denver Broncos. And there are so many quarterback starved teams, 12 now. Broncos are at 12 now, that people will reach. And it scares the hell out of me with 2 ACL surgeries and shoulder surgeries and all that kind of stuff. Makes me a little bit nervous on that. Let me see here. And Dave says, I like Fields, but I would hope the Falcons restart the rookie quarterback clock. It's possible. I think you're probably a decent chance you've got 2 new quarterbacks in here. But bringing in Russell Wilson for $1.5 million and then drafting a quarterback, I could live with that. And you've got Ben Johnson as your head coach, offensive coordinator. I'd take that right now. What about you? How would you feel about that? No Russell Wilson. Guys, there's not a ton of veteran quarterbacks available. Right now, you're looking at Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. It's not what's the best option. It's what's the best available option. That's where it gets really, really tough. And Pee-wee with burnt pizza says, problem with Fields. Good to see you, Pee-wee, as he's due for new contracts, so the Falcons have to pay him big money. He's got 2 years of control. You've got 2 years before you have to. He's in the same class as Kyle Pitts. His 5th-year option would be expensive. It would be $20 million. But for a starting quarterback, that's still not all that expensive. So you come in here and you say, I've got his 4th year of his rookie deal and a 5th-year option. You got 2 years of control to make a decision. And if it's not it, then it's not it. Would you get the same opportunity that Chicago Bears had to draft one of the best quarterbacks of the last 10 years? Boy, that'd be nice. Especially if it didn't mean I had to go 1-16 to do it. Bears are in such a good position here. Pac-D Sam comes in and says, pardon if I ruined your name on this. Can we let Ridder and Heineke walk? Ridder, you probably don't need to. He's dirt cheap, $1 million or so. Heineke signed a 1-year deal with an extent with a club option. I think he's got a $2 million release, dead cap hit. So he's expendable. So we will see on that one. 88 Dr. Pepper says, scan YouTube draft analyst, and the consensus seems to be that Penix will go high, possibly top 10, especially if he does well tonight. Yeah, we'll see. I've seen a lot, some of the bigger ones out there, back end of the first, maybe in the second. And again, a lot of it's going to depend on the medicals for him. And Dave says, can Fields' inaccurate passing be fixed or lived with at least? Yes, probably. And again, what are you going to get? Remember, last year, your bridge quarterback was Marcus Mariota, who came in for about $8 to $10 million. Remember these things, y'all, when you start saying, I don't want to pay Justin Fields any money. These are the kind of options you have. So remember those, please. What's it cost you? What's available? I don't want Justin Fields. Okay, well, you can have Desmond Ridder again. Oh, Justin Fields doesn't sound so bad. So we will see. On that note, listen, y'all, we are hopping in here. This is probably the most live viewers I've ever had on this channel. Thank you so much for checking us out. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're here all year. We're going Monday, Wednesday, Friday on this channel to talk Falcons. We talk NFL. We talk NFL draft heavily on Friday. We'll do playoffs, but it's almost draft time. I'm going to the Senior Bowl here in a couple weeks. This will be my 3rd or 4th year in a row. I'm old. I lose track. I take a 4K camera with me and I shoot a ton of video. I will post it on YouTube. I will post it on Facebook. So I want y'all to make sure you're not missing out on a lot of these guys, no matter who you root for. I want to say thank you very much to my Super Chat superstars that have come in to support the show. Matty Ghost came in multiple times. Mark Schrader, Michael Ronquillo, Keith Johnson, Corey Carter, Darius Mayfield. Love that name, by the way. Latimer 95. Corey came in more than once. Greg Elrod with a big orange super. Thank you, my friend. And Mike Harvey finishing us out on the supers. On that note, I am about to hop over to youtube.com/milehighhuddle at the top of the hour to talk some Denver Broncos. I will be back here on Wednesday to talk Atlanta Falcons, see what some of the scuttlebutt is. Let the aftermath flow in just a little bit, see who else is going to be available with the coaching staffs on Black Monday. But on that note, Oblivion Empire, I did forget you. Why did it not show up at the very bottom? Because I missed it. Sorry, Oblivion. Oblivion Empire came in at the bottom of this. He says, "What's good, Scott? I think it's a good day, Falcons family. I think it's a very good day. And thank you for the support, my friend. You support the show multiple times. I apologize for missing that. It's a good day. This needed to happen. This team, Arthur Blank couldn't have faced the city if this move didn't happen. And Arthur Blank, whether you like him or not, the man cares. People say he doesn't care. That's not true. He absolutely cares. And he's got the money to back it up. He paid out probably 3 more years of Arthur Smith's contract to go out and go hire the next guy. So on that note, y'all, I will be back on Wednesday at 9 o'clock. Hope you can come and join me. Hit that subscribe button, and y'all have a heck of a football Monday. And enjoy the game tonight, and we'll see you next time.